each board member to conduct themselves in a professional manner, to avoid making unnecessary noise, and to refrain from private conversations. The public should be held to the same standards of conduct. This meeting is conducted in accordance with Robert Rules of Order of Parliamentary Procedure. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary?
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell here. Marletta Seats here. Martha Momini.
Present.
Angelica McGowan.
Here.
Margaret Gass.
Here.
Lisa Gully.
Okay, may I have a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Martha Momini. May I have a support?
Support.
Supported by trustee Gass. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding tonight's agenda? Madam Secretary?
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Martha Momini.
Yes.
Marletta Seats, yes. Stephen Mitchell.
Yes.
Joseph Taylor.
Yes. We have a quorum. At this time is the time for public comment. This portion of the meeting, which the public is invited, should be limited to 30 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. Participants will fill out a card at board meetings to request to speak. The only individual submitting the card is allowed to address the school board with respect to the maximum amount of time allowed. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. Speakers will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name, address, and group affiliation if and when appropriate. Each speaker shall have one opportunity to address the school board for a maximum of 3 minutes. Anyone for public participation?
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Michael Kawaji. I met you guys a couple of weeks ago, the last board meeting regarding the properties for sale. So I'm here on 2 notes. I wanted to find out the status of that. Is it on the agenda tonight or not? If not, I can depart and then come back next time when it's on the agenda. And then secondly, I was told that under the Freedom of Information Act, my offer was made public. And it was, written in the media as well as the newspapers or YouTube and the newspapers. There's a competitive offer out there, and that offer has not been made public. That offer is going directly against my offer, and I want to know, how do I get access to that? So I'm submitting a request under the same rights, the Freedom of Information Act, for me to get all competitive offers on all properties being considered for sale by the Benton Harbor area schools.
Okay, so it's not on the agenda tonight, and I would defer to the Central District Office to file your Freedom of Information request.
Who was that? What office?
That's going to be our administrative office, Dr. Walker's office.
Okay.
And that's on Pipestone.
Is there any special paperwork, or you just ask?
I think there's paperwork to fill out for the Freedom of Information.
Okay. I can do that tomorrow.
Do you want to guess whose number we have?
I will. Fantastic. I'll go with you, Susan. I have this written down here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public participation? Okay, Mr. Johnson, you fill it in for Mr. Johnson. Monthly financial reports.
So thank you to Mr. Johnson is at a conference and asked if I would cover his topics. So under the monthly financial reports, this month's financial reports include 2 capital projects, sinking fund reports, one for the 2007 sinking fund and one for the 2017 sinking fund. The year-to-date budget report, as of September 30th, the district had completed 25% of the fiscal year. Also, as of September 30th, the district had received 14.7% of the budgeted revenue and had expended or committed encumbered 14.4% of the expenditure budget. Work has begun on a major budget revision for the general fund. If you have questions, I will listen those to me. I'm not sure that I would be the most
All right,
expert.
Scott usually takes notes. I'm interested in this check register for $271,000 and $560,000 to Presido Network Solutions.
Is that under the year-to-date budget? Which
No,
is
that's
line
under the
item?
check register. Line 113.
271, did I hear this?
Yeah,
right?
271,560.
And what's the company they're saying?
Presido, Presidio Network Solutions. Oh, it looks like maybe we might have an answer here.
Yeah.
One of the Chromebooks that were purchased.
Okay, that would explain why there's such a large amount. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding the monthly financial report? Okay, Dr. Walker, utility budget report.
Yes. Page 2 of this report shows a negative expense amount for ACA. This is due to the district's receipt of a $21,021 refund from our natural gas vendor for its overbilling. So I did reach out to Mr. Johnson just to really understand why we're overbilling. He and Ms. Ender are at this conference, and he wasn't able to get back with me in time, so I could share that with you, because I figured if I didn't know, I'm not sure what that means.
Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the utility budget report? Okay, on to the summer tax resolution.
So Benton Harbor Area Schools levies 100% of its school taxes in the summer. A copy of the authorizing resolution is included in the board packet. By levying 100% of the school property taxes during the summer, the district begins receiving these taxes several months earlier than if these taxes were levied in the winter. And that helps the district's cash flow.
I'll give the board a moment to look at that document.
This is basically a boilerplate document, isn't it?
Yes, it's the same stuff we do every year. Okay, any questions, comments, concerns regarding the summer tax resolution? Dr. Walker, bank depository and agents resolution, I'm sorry.
The bank deposit and agents resolutions approved during the past several months have included the district's now former consent agreement consultant as one of the approved signatories. With the recent conclusion of the consent agreement consultant service in Benton Harbor Area Schools, a Treasury representative has requested that the signatory approval be transferred to Mr. Paul Connors, Director of the Michigan Department of Treasury's Office of School Review and Fiscal Accountability. A recommendation will be made to approve this change, and this will be presented at the next week's meeting.
Thank you. Any questions, comments regarding the bank depository and agents resolution? The name change? Okay. Human Resources, Mrs. Baptist.
All right, good evening to you all.
Good evening.
I have 4 employment memos for you, starting with Crystal Willis, potential 3rd grade teacher for MLK. Her memo is there. Then an employment memo for Tanya Horn, potential 4th grade teacher at MLK. A memo for Shaniqua Davis, paraprofessional in the special ed department for a student at Hall. And then the corrected paperwork for Brian Scott, and I had sent that in the memo to you all of the clerical error made in his salary.
All right, so I'm gonna give the board a chance to look through, 1, 2, 3, 4 memos right quick. So if you have any questions about their qualifications, whatever. Mrs. Mommy?
Okay, and I don't know, it may be true on some others, but it was already announced that Ms. Willis had been hired. It was announced in that school building today. So
Okay.
has she been hired before we voted on her?
She has not been,
Okay.
No.
Someone might want to clear that up.
definitely, yeah, we will do that. My conversation with them is always pending board approval, and so I did not make.
So in the meantime, she'd be getting paid sub pay or long-term sub pay until we approve it? 'Cause she is working in the building.
I'm sorry?
She is working in the building,
Is she? Okay. We will,
unless I misunderstood. She was in the building, I can't remember which day it was.
Yeah.
Not, I thought it was yesterday or today,
She should not be working, not to my knowledge, let me say that to you.
but, okay. Yeah, and I may be wrong, but it sure sounded like on the announcement that they were sending someone to her room.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm assuming no paperwork has been signed,
That's correct.
then there's no possibility she could be there, but she isn't gonna get paid if there's no paperwork.
That's correct. Pending board approval, then paperwork will come if you guys vote next week.
She's there, she must be there on a volunteer basis.
Well, I guess you're being there on a sub basis too.
Yes, sir. Dr. Walker?
So we were there this morning actually, and she's not working. She is looking at the space. She did, do a tour of the building. She was looking at the materials that the pending board approval. So she is there on a volunteer basis and is interacting, just kind of getting the feel of the building is what I saw when I was there this morning, but she's not assigned, nor is she responsible for the students or anything that I saw this morning. So this is that house. She was definitely there.
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
ma'am.
did you say she is in the facility,
Yes.
and I couldn't understand if you were saying she's volunteering?
No, I'm
I didn't hear
saying that she was at the facility
Okay,
this morning when I was there, we were there, and she had, I think, a meeting with Mr. DVD, Dr. DVD. And I'm positive about that, because we had some meetings. She was observing the building, she was observing some classrooms, I believe is what she told us. She was looking at the space with the room, just kind of getting a lay of the land is what was shared, that when I spoke to her directly today, she was in the building. I also did my interview with her today at the, I was already there.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding the human resources segment? Thank you. Dr. Walker, Central Administration, School Finance Research Collaboration.
Thank you. So this is a document that Middle Cities, which we are a member of, which is a conglomerate of school districts that are alike in their size and demographics and needs, is asking school districts and their boards to consider signing. What this is about is the school funding formula. And Middle Cities is supporting the Oakland School District in their pursuit of equity. And they are asking the boards of these districts to support that pursuit. And so this is a draft of what they're asking. And of course, we would come back with your request to sign.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns regarding the resolution of support for school finance and research collaboration? Mrs. Mommy?
Okay, she said this was a draft, so we won't be asked to vote on it until we have the final copy.
I'm sorry, say it again,
She
Mrs.
said this is a draft, so
Yes.
this will not come back to us again until they have a final copy.
Correct. I'm just informing you that this is what they're asking, this is what it looks like, and then once I'm dependent on them to provide it, so this is sent to me on this Friday, so yes.
Mrs. Okay. Yes, Ms. Gass?
I did read through this, and this really is regard to the way public schools only are. Correct. Thanks.
Correct. It's the equity issue in the funding here in Michigan, and there was some study done apparently like a couple of years ago, and people questioned the integrity of that study. So Oakland schools has taken it on, and they're doing some independent study. They're seeing people to donate funds. It's a very big deal, and so they're asking those districts who will be positively impacted to support their effort.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding school finance research collaboration? Have you read Dr. Walker, Neola policies?
Yes. So the board had a special meeting and you went through the policies. And again, as you know, from the past next week, you'll be presented with the opportunity to approve those. And so this is just putting it back before you, although you did review and discuss this last week.
Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the Neola policies we went over in the special meeting, Ms. Seeds?
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering when policies will be coordinated with the administrative guidelines. Is that a upcoming forecast for the board or committee to look at soon?
So the coordination has been done and Neola has them, and we are still waiting on them to return them, in which case they'll be posted on our, when you go to that link. So we are waiting for Neola.
So you're saying Neola is looking at the administrative guideline comparisons to make sure that they match?
Correct. They provide us with a template of guidelines like they do with policies for the board. We went through all of those, added, changed, adopted, a couple of revisions, sent it back to them. And then, yes, they go through and make sure we haven't introduced anything that provided is my understanding. And then once they finish that work, which I was told would be at the beginning of November, so I'm looking for that any day. Then that link, if you click on the website and you click on the policies and you go into that, there's something that's grayed out that says administrative guidelines. That's where it should be. But we're all still waiting for that final.
Okay, because I have been looking at the administrative guidelines and making some comparisons and wanted to see if what was on there, if it didn't compare, what was the corrective action for the board to say that a policy disagreed with the Neola policy. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you have, other than the one book we have in our office. I'm assuming that's what you've been looking at.
I beg your pardon?
When you say you've been looking at the administrative guidelines,
Yes.
we have that one book in the office that.
No, I'm talking about online, superintendent. I've been
There's a
looking.
link on the
There is a
website.
link.
Oh, then it's up, it just came up then, I haven't even found it myself. This just happened. Is that what you're saying?
Okay.
This would have,
Yeah,
wasn't
I've been
there
looking and
today.
making
Wasn't there
comparisons
last
as I
week.
look at policies, I look at administrative guidelines to see how they mirror each other.
Yes, so the other people would have also done that work, but absolutely,
Okay.
and so, yeah, it's great to know, because I didn't notice it yesterday and but I haven't actually.
Okay.
So I have a question, Dr. Walker, because the board was notified by trustee Gully that when she was doing her comparison of protocol versus whatever she was filing of complaints, she noticed that Renee Willard's name was still there. Has that been corrected to your name?
It would stay with the HR office, it's just a board policy correction, we know that the board would initiate and approve. So it's just that we can certainly add that into the list, absolutely.
Right, I think we need to bring that up for next week because
Yeah.
Renee Williams hasn't been here in how many years, you think, Mark?
No, it was Renee Wheeler.
What-
So it's been however long Kelly's been here, what, a year?
Right, a year.
It's like 3 months, yeah.
It's been 1 year. You're right, and that's, again, as well, if the policies and you want to update them, then we would initiate the paperwork for the Neola. And then it comes back to you as an update that you approve. Okay? So just, we'll find out exactly how that works and bring it to you for next week.
Michigan Data Hub, Dr. Walker.
And I'm having some trouble accessing his site, so bear with me. Oh, gosh. Okay, well, darn it. Okay, so what I wanted to share with you all tonight are a couple of things. Not that one, this one that's not here. I'm going to, thank you, trying to assist me. Give me 1 second when we get back to the agenda. So I'm going to start. I went to a conference about, how to obviously improve services and supports. And particularly this conference was a company called IDEX, Services and Supports to Michigan Districts Around Data. And I think you all have heard me beat the dead horse about my frustration. I know some of you have some significant frustrations around data as well. And I learned a very important variable at the conference, that there is a dramatic difference in the data dashboard that I was able to access in my former district than what Michigan offers, and there's like ice ages between the two. I thought this was either a Benton Harbor issue or something issue. It's not us. This is the whole state of Michigan. And so I was going to show you that comparison. The challenge I have is the company that I wanted to show you that has what I call a true data dashboard that I'm used to working from. Their website is down. So hopefully it'll come back up before we leave. But I will show you the Michigan side and what Michigan's trying to do. So the first document that I included is the I've lost all of my agenda.
Michigan Data Hub.
Thank you. So I have, through the partnership agreement, our ISD has determined that it will be to the district's advantage to participate in what is called the Michigan's Data Hub. Now, what this data hub is, which is what's up on the screen, is, and this is a presentation that was done at the IDEX conference last week by a gentleman out of the Kalamazoo RISA who has been given this grant project oversight by the state of Michigan to attempt to create a collaborative hub where school districts can better acquire data in the state of Michigan. So through this partnership agreement, the RISA connected me to this gentleman about 2 weeks ago. I then go to the conference and he is there, and I shared with you the PowerPoint that he went over with those of us who were at this conference, where he is encouraging districts in Michigan to join this data. And so again, not to read it to you, but to give you context, the concept behind the data hub is school districts have multiple platforms where information goes in about staff, attendance, about students, a plethora of things around achievement data, attendance, discipline. You have financial data. You have, just different platforms. And the concept behind the data hub, and if you go down to the, Susan has the screen up, you can see how it talks about the varying types of data that the Michigan Data Hub wants to connect these different companies so that ultimately it will make school districts in Michigan more able to pull information or data on students and on the district in a comprehensive way. The staff assigned this grant. It's like a $2 million grant the state has given to these people to create this. They have been working on this. This is their 5th year, and this is where they are. Every district that comes on board, what that does for us is our food service program, for example, and I don't have my computer in front of me right now, so until I can find it, our food service program, any of those data input programs. Thank you, Ms. Robbins. Food service is one. Illuminate with special education is a system that Benton Harbor has data in. Obviously, Power School is a big one. So the idea would be, if you look at the picture Sue has up, it's not loading it on. you can see in the middle, the concept of the hub is that all this data is pulled into a central location, and then a school district is able to better access that information. But this hub, after and into their almost 5th year, is just now getting these systems to come together, let alone being able to pull anything out and use it. So if you keep going and you get to toward the end of the slide, it talks about, how does the data hub help us? Will it reduce costs on data management? And for a district like Benton Harbor, it absolutely does, because those technical pieces that go into these systems communicating with one another are eliminated for the district to pay for, because it's done through this data hub, as an example. So ultimately, right now, if you keep going down into the presentation, it talks about the second problem. It increases data quality, so the data is ready, available, and used for district, regional, state, and federal programs. It provides actionable data in an ethical manner with these dashboards and reports. And then they go into some examples. I think so it's ahead of me. And they give you, let me catch up this. So they have this. Okay. So then they talk about these reasons on why you should get the data hub. If you keep going, there's a slide. So they talk about cost savings, improving the quality of data, getting these early warning dashboards, and things of this nature. NWE data will be able to talk. Ames web data, all these systems that we have, and we tell you we're frustrated because we can't just pull the data because the systems don't communicate. This is a Michigan issue. It's not a Benton Harbor issue. So the solution that the state legislators and powers should be determined was to create the Michigan Data Hub. So I have chosen to prescribe our district to this because I'm desperate for data. That would allow us to better acquire our data as Michigan's experts build this service, this program. And so if you scroll down to page 18, you can see kind of an implementation process where they're still working on the districts just getting signed up. And, I have introduced them already myself to a couple of other systems. I think they should look at pulling into the data hub. And so you can see on slide 19, they talk about a major cultural change. They've been 4 years planning. They want every district on board. There isn't a huge benefit right now. And I really want to let that resonate because I think this goes back to our frustrations about why we can't get data in a more friendly and usable way. They're trying to build districts' trust. I talked to the lawyer. I talked to this guy on the phone. I was skeptical initially until I really took the time to really dig deeper and learn more. And so ultimately, my point in sharing this with the board is to really emphasize that this lack of data that we are all frustrated by is really a bigger issue in our district. Now, on the heels of that, switch back. Thank you all. And this, because it was an IDEX conference, when I came to Benton Harbor, I did learn about IDEX. Tricia and I even last year had someone come out and kind of show us how to use IDEX. And for me, it was like stepping into the dinosaur age. And I'll tell you why. If you've not ever used IDEX, and if you've ever seen it, and Dr. Weatherspoon sent you a report recently, and I think I did. If I didn't, I asked them for one. All the data that they do share is general, is big. So it might be comparisons of as Benton Harbor compared to like districts. And if the conversation is about how do you spend your financial resources, or how many staff do you have per student? You can ask a whole bunch of things, and you can get into your student data, which is a feature they just added, which is part of why they were showing us at the conference, which Ms. Robinson has been working, because she had to figure out how to link and upload our NWA Ainsworth data into their system. But when we do that, when you go into IDEX, it's a very flat, I'm gonna call it. So like once you're in, and I'm sure I might just benefit to use this and hook it up to my computer, because you have to have the right login to get in here. And so, when you go into IDEX, what you'll find are these different reports. It's a lot of information. But it's not about students, it's not prescriptive, it doesn't drill down in, it's stagnant. It's really from that prior year, it's not current and in the moment. You can't manipulate it. So for example, if the question were, we've got students involved in the Scooby-Doo Club, and we want to know how their experience in Scooby-Doo Club is impacting their learning. There isn't really a compact way right now for us to get that, but where I came from, it was. And that's what I wanted to show you. Hopefully the website will come up and show you. You create a list, it's so simple. You identify the students in the club, and then you can pull all their data, and it's current, it's updates every night overnight. So if a discipline incident happened the day before, you have current data. If they were absent, you have current data. So that dashboard that I'm used to, that I was trying to find, doesn't exist in Michigan, which really shocked me last week. I was surprised.
So are you saying that you went to the conference, but it's not something that you would like to see in our district, although it looks like quite a few of the other districts are coming on board? And the system that you say you were accustomed to, have we seen this before?
No.
Or did this just come after you saw this?
So, a couple of questions in there. First of all, I'm saying I want you to know what's available in Michigan and what we
Yeah,
can do.
we're familiar with this.
So the IDEX is what's available in Michigan. That's the big one. And I wanted to show you what IDEX looks like compared to what I'm used to, which is not in Michigan. Tyler Post is not in Michigan. And I've talked to the data hub folks, the people at this conference. There is no dashboard in Michigan anywhere similar to what this particular product offers. And it's really for the user who is really trying to analyze and assess data and understand what's happening in the district.
Do you have a cost comparison?
I'm not there yet. I was just trying to show you all the frustration that we all have around data and that this is not a Benton Harbor issue. I thought it was like something we were doing or something we did not know or something we didn't understand. But it's bigger than that. This is where Michigan is. Michigan has data warehouses like in IDEX or like in Illuminate that are limited. And I want to show you a platform that is unlimited. And I pray their website comes up, and then I'll bring it to you next week because I want you to see it, but I can't like share it with you because I had to sign waivers right to have access to it because they're not even in Michigan. They're willing, and I have connected the Tyler Post to the data hub guy. Like this is big skill stuff. The data hub people are really excited because I'm connecting them to some other options that will improve Michigan's data acquisition, which is why I titled it that.
Right, I understand. I was just, I'm sorry.
Ms.
Okay,
Bowden?
you're talking about this possible data collection. You're talking about having the possibility of finding how the kids in the Scooby-Doo club are doing, but then you said all you have to do is type in their names.
In this other system that Michigan
Okay,
doesn't
but I've been
have.
told in our current system, if I want to know how the kids, I talked to 3 different people that have dealt with our data system and said, if you type in the names that are 21st century, you can get the data and you can see how they're doing compared to the kids that are getting academic intervention. So how is this any
Very
different?
different, you can, and so that's why showing you the post system will make you go, oh, you can. So, and again, it's, I'm gonna call it flat data, meaning if you pull up my kid's name, each child is an individual search, and I look at John, and then I look at Martha, and then I look at Mary and Tom, my individual students, I can see how they're performing in our current system. What I'm talking about in the data dashboard is when you set your program to be the kids in the Scooby-Doo Club, it creates a dashboard where when you log in, it pulls up all of those children right away in one spot, and you don't have to do anything else. But in East and Power School, you have to go by each kid, you got to pull that off. There's a lot of hand manipulation and calculation.
So in the meantime, why don't we do this? So we get the data that we want.
I'm sorry, say it again. I didn't-
So in the meantime, why are we not doing that? So we get the data, so when we get the votes, and we're being asked to fund a program or hire a person to do something, it may take a little bit of time, but why are we currently doing that? So I could say, okay, 21st Century is doing what it says it's going to do. Our intervention, active intervention people are doing what they said they're going to do, and
Two answers, Ms. Melanie, I can answer that. The first answer is manpower and time. Okay, so when you compare for that staff, that we're asking to go through and pull all that data, it absolutely can be done. But it's manpower and time, but it can be done. And the other piece that's more critical, if you go back into last year, and I've shared with the board, we in our district's ability to use Power School is limited. So here's the other piece about this system that I'm going to speak to you about, that I'm going to show you, and I think they might have noticed is what you call a technical system that technical people manage and use, so districts that hire techie people to manage their district's acquisition of data, and what I call the user side. Right now, many of these programs, Power School, eSchool, Infinite Campus, are for technical people. So in order to even get to that, you have to know the right program code. I could ask Ms. Robinson to give you an example the other day when she was trying to get us some data, what she had to go through just to try to get to the data, let alone analyze it and assess it, is cumbersome. In a more robust current system, you don't have to do all that. And that's why I wanted to be able to show you. You just click a button. There are hundreds of reports that are automatically available that are in current live data. However, the issue is in order to make that data live and current and available, the problem we also have in Benton Harbor, to answer your question, is because we don't know how to properly use our tool. There haven't been systems and structures in place. That's where I talked about having Ms. Melville come in and start to look at each building and to start to look at just simple practices around taking attendance, inputting discipline, so we can align those structures. So when we do pull that data out, even if it's manually done, we know that it's accurate information. We have a high turnover with our secretaries. We just replaced 3 secretaries in the past week out of our 5 schools. It's huge. So again, that learning curve and trying to train people on how to use the tool, which we barely know how to use it, and then input information accurately, those opportunities that we will overcome. I'm trying to help the board understand why it is taking so long, because Michigan isn't equipped as a state, nor are we as a district, to quickly and efficiently access data. So we've done what we've been showing you. If you go to the next slide where it says principal scorecard, this is something we've created as a leadership team for this year, where we're going to pull data into one location. This is where Ms. Levesky comes in, because she will help us to input information in these top portions around each school. So this is the high school scorecard that we've developed. And when you scroll down, you can see where we're planning for this year and starting last week to collect specific data around each building. Back to your point, Ms. Momini, some of these areas where I know the board has been asking for information, and I'm frustrated too, because I'm used to a dashboard where you just go get it, that we don't have. I've created something where I'm still relying on these administrators or their secretaries to pull the data, to your point, but I've created a tool that will allow me to collect this information across each building to start sharing and reporting things out that I can't get out of the current system we use.
Oh, I just want to say something. I think I know what Martha's saying, Dr. Walker. She's saying that, we're asking for data, so let's try something first, because I think the board, we don't want to just keep paying for systems. We want some actions based on some of our questions. So I think I understand what her question, because she's saying if you have some of this data right now, give it to the board, because that's what we've kind of been asking, right? Because kind of if you come back to us and say this is X, Y, Z, 50,000, whatever it is, we may say no. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Or we may say, do 100,000, we know this is working right now.
And I'm saying I don't have the data to give it to you that simply, and that's why I'm trying to help the board see why this is such a task. We are working on it. We will get there. We put structures in place as we have moved into this year to be able to give you the information you need, but we don't have it that easily.
Ms. Gass and Ms. Cease?
So I'm looking at what's up there. And this basically kind of looks like an Excel spreadsheet. So is that what you're doing, is you are creating an Excel spreadsheet that will not draw data from anywhere, but that you will just be filling in for us?
Because I have no other way.
All right, and just in terms of the issues that you've expressed to us about who's actually generating the data at the entry level, data entry level, which be it teacher, principal, wherever you're collecting your data from, how are they providing you the data? Are they doing it by hand? Are they doing it online? Are they doing it daily? And you don't need to go through every one, but just give us a general idea of how this is being collected before you
So
put it.
if it's achievement day, when they take like the NWA, that one is automated. So the data goes into NWA's data bank, and then we can pull that data out in charts and tables and information. Again, it's what I call flat data. Okay, you can identify the students from last year who were in a class together and pull it out by that. You can pull it out by the students that are in the class this year. Let's say it's fourth grade. Okay.
And then I just have one more question. I want to kind of parrot back to you what I thought I heard is Michigan, this company has or is developing a system for the state of Michigan, which may not be as good as your state or some other states, but this will be free to our district. And it will, for our district, allow us to pull that data once and if or when the system is up and running. Is that correct? Now, will that data then be used to compare somewhere, available to compare somewhere with other districts?
That is not my understanding of how
Okay,
we use
so this
them.
is totally internal system that they're creating to get different platforms. And so my question going along with that, Mr. Taylor may be able to help me out with different I have a little bit of experience with trying to put different platforms together with, frankly, HIPAA, that system that was implemented where I was before, trying to make that talk to our financial system. So way simpler than what we're talking about here. But if you're talking about, are all the districts using the same kind of software? And that I'm assuming is, the answer is no. So how are they figuring out this system to incorporate everybody's data, or will it, those systems, those platforms just be null and void and this will be?
It's a great question. So from what I understand, because I have had experiences as well, so I kind of get this, all the districts, when Benson Harbor signed up to say, yes, we'll support the data, but it's just for our district. But what it does is it allows their technicians to look at whatever platforms we use, whether they're the same ones other districts use, like Power School, where there are a lot of districts in Michigan that use Power School, to something specific to Benton Harbor. I don't know, it could be that, maybe in the school we do hub, platform. And so by giving them access, they're able to say, well, we've talked to the school folks, we've talked to the Power School folks, we've talked to the IDEX people, which they're talking to IDEX, which is again what I learned in this conference. We've talked to Infinite Campus, we've talked to Skyward, all these platforms that districts use for their finances, for their human resource offices, on their financial packages, all of these entities that are tools that districts use. The concept behind the data hub is just what you said. It allows them, I call it like KISS, all the information KISS in one place. So my understanding from talking to this Don Daly guy is that they only would KISS our data to the platforms we actually use, but another district, St. Joe, has whatever, if they signed up for it, they have their own individual platforms, and it will allow every district to then network all their platforms to the school system.
So
Ms.
there-
Gass, just one second, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go to the seats, and then I'll come right back.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Walker, you said that there is no data. Okay, and I've heard it several times, you said we don't have data. When we did get the school of choice enrollment report from IDEX, where did the data come from to generate this extensive report on how many students transferred out, school of choice losses, and et cetera, if there is no data? And when you make that statement, what are you actually saying? You don't have any data to give to them?
I'm saying there's no data in our system in a form that allows us to analyze on an individual student basis. That's a very important clarity piece.
And that cannot be created by IDEX.
Nope. And they're working on it, were their exact words, but they do not have that capability. You have Illuminate that does do some work around individual students. Benton Harper does not use the system Illuminate. Special education uses Illuminate, but our district does not. But again, even in what Illuminate offers, and I've never used it, so I've not seen it, and I'm not prescribing necessarily for what we're going to use. Again, my intent today is to share with you the whole concept behind data acquisition and the state of Michigan, but also to clarify in my mind why I'm used to being able to pull data so easily, and I found that in Michigan, and I had this conversation with those persons in Michigan, and Michigan's just not there yet. So the intent for IDEX, Michigan Data Hub, will be to get to that place, and you can see it in their presentation. They ultimately want to dashboard.
Okay, because, I'm sorry.
No, you have no question? Ma'am, Ms. Gass?
This is my last one, just so, obviously, districts are using all sorts of different software platforms, whatever you want to call it. So, and this indicates that this will be free, so will the technical support be free?
That is
So
my
setting it up and technical support will be free to the district.
correct. So the other piece that I want to add, and so one, they are, the Michigan Data Hub's team asked me Friday if we would be willing to go down as a co-applicant for a grant called Grad Nation, which would, again, help the Data Hub speed its work and its processes, and would help the district because we would benefit because now we have some expertise around really working to expedite our graduation rate. So that's an example of something the Data Hub can offer Benton Harbor around our graduation rate that I feel, and I say that without any proof, I'm trusting the state of Michigan's approach to data, that we'll be able to, if this grant is approved, and we won't know until January, the deadline is tomorrow, it would help the Data Hub improve its capacity to help districts acquire data. And Benton Harbor will be right in the middle of that work, so I feel really excited that for what Michigan does offer, we're connected at a whole nother level based on the conversations I've had in the past week. But again, just wanted the board to have a little more context around the data issue in Michigan and to really, to Mrs. point, clarify. When I say we don't have data, I'm not meaning we don't have data. I'm saying we don't have data in a form that when you see a real dashboard, and that's what I really wanted to show you, it'll clear all this conversation up. Because it really is click a button and it is unbelievable the information you can get in a click. All types of data around your discipline you can find out in a click. By building all the incidences, how many, you can find out which teachers presented them, you can find out how many male to female, it's in a click. And it's right there, and there's no one trying to gather that data. It has to be input, that piece still has to be done. But when in there, we are able to retrieve that data. Even the board can have access to the dashboard and, be able to look at it, to give you what you're asking for is what I'm saying. And so I'm saying that to just give you some context. I'm not asking you to consider anything. I'm not trying to purchase anything. I'm giving you information on a variable that's very important to this board and to this leadership to give some context as to why it has been very difficult to make this happen in the way we all want it to happen, because it's not set up to work that way.
Okay, any other questions for concerning the Michigan Data Hub or the IDEP? Okay, Dr. Walker, principal scorecard.
Again, it was a part of this conversation just to show you the scorecard and to show you the other scorecard we did last year. And the scorecard we're planning this year, we had to create our own dashboard last year with Dr. Teasley's work. That's what we talked about and we've been showing you all every quarter. We created our own. And that's again to show you how there really isn't a hub of data that we can pull from in the state of Michigan that we have access to. There are opportunities, and what I was told at the conference, districts that have a lot of resources and have people, they are faring way better in this area. But for a district like Benton Harbor, Michigan is just not moving in that direction. So I was just trying to comparatively show the board what we've had to create on our own, which is a process. It takes time. It's all hand done. It all has to be pulled. That's why we need Ms. Boleski. She helps us to get this data in there with the greatest degree of fidelity. But if this other system, hopefully their website will be up next week, and I can go in and show you the dashboard. Whoa. And I had Ms. Robinson and Mr. Scott sit in with me as I showed it to them. They were like, oh my gosh, there are no words. So I just wanted the board to see the two, so that as we move forward and as we continue this work, my goal is to get us to a place where we really are data rich, because there are tools out there outside of the state that we can acquire if we so choose.
All right, district scorecard.
Same thing.
The same thing, just showing us. Okay, so ACA gym floor naming rights.
So there was some discussion by email trying to determine how to support a request that came in October at the beginning of the month to resurface the floor at ACA and replace the gentleman who wanted to put the finances in did ask if his name could go on the floor. I wrote the policy and I even did name it, I didn't get anything, so I didn't find the policy. Ultimately, I asked the board, hey, is this something, if you helped me out, you gave me the two policies. So what you have before you is via the policy, the board has to do two things from what I'm understanding in this process. A, accept the gift, right? That one was easy, but B is the process to name the floor. There has to be an agreement. So once the board pointed me in the direction, I talked with Tim Gardner. So what you have before you is what he is proposing the board would sign, which is that agreement that our policy calls for. And then he also has to show this to Mr. Chandler for them to sign on. And so he's going to be working with Mr. Kosher to do that. At that point, we'll come back to the board for a signature. There is a time piece in this. Mr. Chandler, from what I'm told, wanted to come and observe one of the middle school games. That's why the rush. So we're trying to see if we can get it through, but of course learned that it is a process. So we're in that process now. So just wanted you to see.
So, Ms. Seats?
Yes, thank you. I was one that did express some concerns about the correspondence. I know I received it on Wednesday, and they wanted to commence on starting the project on a Friday, and now I'm looking at an actual date, and I was concerned about the kids and being relocated, and when did the request come in? I never received a response. How long ago? What was the specifications that went along with the request? I see what we have to do, but I don't see the front end of when this request came in. It could not have came in on that Wednesday, and Mr. Chandler expected us to do it and start it on that Friday. I think, he didn't make it as far as he is now by trying to expedite stuff in this time frame. So I'm concerned that this still will cause an inconvenience in the school district, and Mr. Chandler does come in and out of the school district. And is this a dead set date that Mr. Chandler said, if we do not do this by December 5th, 2017, is he going to take the gift back?
So in your weekly memo on Sunday are the answers to your questions.
She came in
Well,
on Sunday.
The weekly memo that I sent to you all on Sunday answers all of your questions and gives you all the documents that accompany this based on what you asked of me and your questions. So let me just speak to them briefly. The request came in to the athletic director October, he said around the first of the month. He then reached out to the middle school to talk to Mr. Roseberg about interest and to your question and concern, how would this request affect programming? Because what he had been told was the team from Mr. Chandler wanted to come in, do the project during the month of November because Mr. Chandler's schedule only allows him to come to one game, and that was December 11th. So the timeline came from him based on that premise. However, Mr. Crucial, working with Mr. Roseberg, and at that point he did inform me that there was an interest in laying the gym floor at ACA. So I was informed there was an interest, and that's when I initially looked to see if there was anything in policy, didn't really see anything in the policy. And Mr. Crucial and Mr. Pearson talked on the feasibility of how they could take care of the athletic events that would occur during this 4-week window after school. That was Mr. Crucial making sure he had a home for the teams. And Mr. Roseberg talking about where he could place the gym classes. That took, I think, about 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I wasn't following it closely at that time because when I knew they were interested in placing the floor, I was not aware of the timeline. I just knew they had asked, hey, if we wanted to do this, could we replace the floor? So at that point, what you have in the email that I sent you on that Wednesday was what I got literally on that day, where Mr. Leonard had looked at, because one of the things I had said, I'm not even going to entertain this until Mr. Leonard looks at it to know on the construction side what they're proposing. So that was that Wednesday is when I got the email and all it was saying, hey, we want to start this, whatever that date says. That was literally what we got. So then I was like, which is what I said to the board, unless there's something that I missed, because I had looked, I didn't see the policies, I said, and unless there's something we shouldn't do, if you guys let me know on Friday, it would benefit them because they wanted to start Monday. But again, we were able to tell them we can't start because there were some processes that still have to be addressed, which is what we did.
And also, if I may, okay, also, one of the other questions was that the same vendor that did the high school floor, and I see in this that it is the same vendor, and that took forever.
That took forever, which
It
part
took
of this
to
is?
get the gym floor at the high school. And if you're talking from now until December 5th, I mean, I know the size of the gym is different. Did this bid go out? Was there RFP for the, so?
We don't control Christmas seats, this is a gift, so
I
they got
understand,
to
I got
pick
the policy,
their
so
bid.
superintendent, on the gift, we have to receive the gift, and then we have to, agree to the contract or agreement. I do understand, but still,
We don't
as a
bid.
district, we don't bid out, or we don't approve bids, or
Mhm.
I didn't know that.
Mr. Mitchell, and then Mrs. Baum.
Got a couple of concerns. I did have a conversation with the athletic director that I talked to last week when this first came up. And one of my questions was why the rush on this? First of all, we'd be dislocating the students from ACA for a period of time. First of all, my second question to him was there a time frame on the donation to expire if we didn't do it this quickly? He informed me that the representative from Mr. Chandler stated that no, there was no time frame that this could be done during the summer. It did not have to be done by December 5th if it was going to disrupt the school day. Now my question is, our real estate plan is up in the air and put on hold. Now, if we go ahead with this quickly, and our real estate plan changes, because we're looking at other options on the configuration of our buildings, what good would it do to have him donate these dollars and we redo the floor, and perhaps we may not be at ACA in another year or two. That's another issue for me. So if he's not adamant about the December 5th date, I think it would behoove us to at least wait until the summer to do the work. The only reason the December date was stressed in this document was that the Denver Nuggets played the Detroit Pistons on or about December 5th or 6th or somewhere around here. He would like to have been here for a celebration. But as far as the date being that locked in stone, I don't think that's a true communication. That's stated by your athletic director. So, you know, if we can accept the donation, that's fine. The time frame for me is a little bit quick.
Mrs. Bombay?
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm frustrated or whether I'm becoming resentful about so many things being brought to us at the last minute and asking us to make decisions. And this kind of fills in with what Mr. Mitchell said, and then we end up with some unintended consequences, or we haven't really thought out in the future. I mean, we have a foundation, it's sort of that we pay for, but nothing happened to it. We built new classrooms onto buildings that are now closed. And even though this isn't our money, and someone is very kindly offering to pay for it, we have got to start putting ourselves in a position where people are expecting or wanting us to make quick decisions. Because we have to stop and think about things and make wise choices and think about possible consequences that might hit us down the road. So I would appreciate it if this board, our staff, everybody, slow down, let's stop and think about these things, and let's get our act together and get out of this position where we're constantly being asked to approve things at the last minute without really having time for thought and possible consequences.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding? Yes, ma'am.
May I ask, Trustee Mitchell, did you say, I'm looking for where bids go out, and superintendent says that this board has no lot in that matter? Why would that be that? How do you have any oversight of who's doing the work, how the work is done, and is there conflict of interest in some of the RFPs? I mean, that I don't understand, and maybe it's because I'm from the government and we always knew who was getting the bids.
Well, if you look at the policy regarding purchasing,
Okay.
and renovation and construction, the state threshold is $25,000 where a formal bid actually takes place. So anything below that amount, the administration would have the opportunity to choose to.
Without a RFP. What is the cost for the facility? Do we have a number?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sorry, the number was given, I think, what was it, 22?
1,600 or something, yeah, it was under
And
22.
your naming rights agreement, since there's a amount of 21,000, so they would have a wherewithal to let that bid.
and bring in the same vendor. Okay.
Yes, because as long as it's below that threshold.
Any other questions? I think I'm in agreement that we can hold off, and maybe, my opinion would be, we could vote to accept, but not to do the floor until the summer. Just be my opinion. So, Dr. Walker, I'm sorry, Ms. Mitchell. I'm sorry, Anthony.
I didn't think that was an option. I mean, from what I had read was that, there's a deadline. So before we agree to accept the gift, we need to find out what is the gift.
Mr. Kirschel was here earlier, and it was by his statement to me, anyway, that there was not a time frame. So I don't know, by next Tuesday, I'm sure that we'll get the answer, either to the affirmative or what he told me was not, the way it is. But that's what he can do,
Ms. Gadsden?
And I do believe in terms of, just generally in terms of accepting the gift, there is nothing to prevent us from, in our motion, to make it contingent upon it happening after a certain date. So I think that we're covered.
I think the staff report should sort of mention it when it's brought before us.
Yes.
Lisa?
Is there any documentation in terms of the gifts and what is specified? Like, what are they giving, what's the timeline from the actual source? Because I just can't go off of the inconsistent third-party stuff. They said, you said, if it's not in writing, what did they really say?
So Dr. Walker, I think Trustee Gully wants to see the documentation, right, of the gift.
Where's
It's in the weekly memo, and it's linked, so their calendar that they provided to Mr. Crochet, the floor plan, the actual bid is all in your weekly memo. And they're linked.
Do you guys need time to access that? You can access the weekly memo to look at what Trustee Gully wanted.
I saw it.
And I just-
Finished product.
But that's all I seen too, was just, I didn't see any supporting, right, I seen no supporting documentation. The request, I did not see. I seen the outcome of what the request would look like, and that's one of my questions that I also posed.
So we're gonna give Trustee Gully time to go over that, as well as maybe Dr. Walker, if the AD has some actual documentation, or if he has a little bit more data, then you can always just email that to us. That way we can answer those questions.
I did ask him for all the documentation, which is what I shared, but I will make sure, the way he presented to me was, it sounded like it was the agent of Mr. Wilson Chandler called him. And then this is what they said, but I'll verify that, and just want to reiterate, again, that the information that I received, again, through the AD, was the request, really was simply about that day that Mr. Mitchell spoke of. So, I mean, it would certainly benefit us to wait as a school entity, because it will be disruptive. We have a plan. But it was the question of, do we want to accommodate such a gracious gift? It was never presented to me that there was an open timeline, so that was the information for me today. So that's good. I think that's great.
Or we just, we'll allow Trustee just a little bit more time.
May I, while she's looking, may I ask that, hopefully, in the near future, because I was confused with, the process, two people not being able to identify the policy. And then it was dependent on, board members finding the policy, and yet there was a rush on the request. And I would like to see that if there is such a request, that the policy is also referenced, because I did find another instance where the policy that I did receive in the communication was actually not the policy. So I would like to see if in fact we get a request, if the policy is referenced, so we don't have to do the homework for the people who are sending it to us, and so that we know that I can go to policy 7520, 7530, which was the reference for this one, and I don't have to be looking at it. So,
Lisa, do you need any more time?
It's really nothing here. I see some numbers from the bid, but it's actually not like what Ms. Gaddis, she showed me the But I did see that contract, but I guess that's what was submitted. Go by. And the calendars just say somebody's birthday, January the 11th. And that's all it says, happy birthday or something. You don't say nothing but happy
You
birthday.
have to wait for it to load in, because I
Oh,
thought that
okay.
it takes a while. I saw that and I thought, what? But if you wait, it
Oh,
shows.
birthday card.
Yeah, something, but if you wait for it to
So
load
I'm
in,
like,
it does
what's
show.
the birthday card?
I still don't think it's specific. That's what-
But yeah, okay.
Okay. So on to, basketball for Ben Harbor Area School first through sixth grade students. I'm sorry, Feed the Children, Dr. Walker.
So this is a donation that we received from Feed the Children, and again, the policy is required that we share with the board.
Any questions? All right, basketball for Ben Harbor Area Schools, first through sixth grade students. I think that's just, that program that was submitted to me. Yes, ma'am.
I did, look at the, submission, Mr. Chair. I do like what I do see, and I think that it would be a benefit to the district. And I do hope the board, will consider, but I have a question and a concern. When these type of items are submitted, now, I know I have vocally, had some concerns with a couple of entities that submitted to do programs, okay? And in spite of the objection, they're still gonna be able to participate. Now, how does this work if this is something that actually will benefit? How much weight do we have in determining what's good for this district and what's not good for this district as a board through grants? Because when I was in the training yesterday, there were certain specific requirements that were required in order to participate in this district. Now, this is something that used to be here, I believe, and are at other schools with the little kids, and I think it ultimately does. And the individual who would be doing this is, I mean, top of the line to be able to get in this school district. So I would think that we should have some lot in what happens within the district, and we should be able to say yay or nay. And is that the case in this particular instance, sir?
So I'm going to defer to Dr. Walker because they have a committee for the safety game preventive grant. So, and then we'll try to answer that question. Dr. Walker, what's your stand on this as far as the board being able to participate in choosing the grant recipients?
So again, back to policy 1100, and I think it's 1230, if I could verify. The district leadership and superintendent is given the task to process through the applications and make the suggested programs that we will move forward with. And then when I send those to you, if you decide as a board or individual on the board that you don't support a particular program, you certainly can voice that, and it would come back to the board table for the board to vote if they want to move forward.
Does that answer your question? So she's saying that you have a chance. I'll defer. Miss Mobley.
Okay. Okay, it's showing an expense of $11,784. So the intent is that money would come from grant monies? Our grant money?
Are you talking about this particular proposal?
Yeah, this proposal on the
This
basketball.
came through the board to the district. I do believe I've had Ms. CA reach out, and I think she and the league have spoken, but we have not reviewed it, so I can't really speak to this particular one just yet this moment.
Because if we're paying $11,784, that also does not include custodial costs or security costs or anything. And the proposal does not say Benton Harbor area schools students. It says Benton Harbor area. So are we going to fund something that's not going to benefit only our students?
I think what she told me is our students.
but it doesn't say it in this proposal.
Well, she's gonna have to go through that.
That's gotta be changed, or you're not gonna get my vote on it. I mean, it's great if it's for our kids and they're using our money.
Yep.
Our grant money, but it is the youth of the Benton Harbor area.
I think maybe she didn't know how to write that. That's my guess.
So, yeah, gotta say there are Benton Harbor area schools in there, or we're funding,
Right.
activities and positive experiences for students that are not currently our students.
Correct. I think, Ms. C, so Dr. Walker said that it was something that the board disagreed with that was brought up through the grant subcommittee, right? Then board can always exit out, get rid of it.
Come to the table and vote and refuse it if they don't want us to do it.
Okay. Okay, so I'll talk via email, but I have very adamantly.
Right, but it comes to the table of the board, Ms. East, you have, so.
So it is gonna come, the two proposals that I've objected to will come before the board.
The board has to bring it before the board and
Okay,
say,
well,
so when you communicate that you don't
I
appreciate
ask
that,
that you put that on the agenda for conversation and for consideration,
Which items?
per the, email. One of them doesn't have a name, I don't think, Girls for Pearls. And I don't know what the other one is, the out of school program after school mentoring program. After school mentoring, that's
I would need help with that one, I don't recall the mentoring
What's the name of it?
program after school. If you could just be so kind in that, and then with the memo.
What's the name of it, Mark?
Because I have no.
They
One
didn't
at
propose,
Overflow?
they didn't propose for this year.
They didn't.
Right, she gave us a list,
They had a presentation that they didn't propose.
no, that presentation was based on, trustee Hilton. She said, hey, we need to see, some of these students, right, like they worked in the park, et cetera. So that's what, the reason why they came. So, but I think we were sent, in a memo or something, the 1, 2, 3, or 4 chosen people through grants. So it was sent in the email. I don't know if it was a week, 2 ago or whatever.
It's
So
been more than a week.
what I'm just saying, so in order for us to put it on, I just need you to
I will
identify.
be very specific.
Okay, then we'll put it on.
President table, thank you.
Mr. Mitchell?
I had an opportunity to read through the proposal that the young lady sent through for the basketball league, 1st through 6th grade. And let me just say that I personally support the proposal. In looking back over history, we have had this type of program for our youngsters in elementary school. And lately, over the past 5 to 10 years, it disappeared. However, when you look at the outlying schools, such as the charter schools, specifically Countryside, they have basketball opportunities for 3rd through 6th grade. Because my grandson participated while he was there. And in that league, there was members from Coloma, Three Oaks, Countryside, St. Joe, Lakeshore, Brandywine. So there is a league for youngsters. Benton Harbor Schools was never represented in that league over the past 4 or 5 years that I know about. So tweaking the agreement to name or say Benton Harbor area students, that's that should be a no-brainer. But looking at the program as a whole, I think that would be a very positive thing for our students. Let's keep the big picture in mind.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding the 1st through 6th grade basketball presentation? Okay, Dr. Walker, audit report.
Thank you. So again, in the absence of Mr. Johnson, he wanted me to inform you that the auditors will be here next Thursday, and they will go through the report with you. It is very exciting findings, and it's only 3 findings compared to 8 last year as an example. But they will go through this with you next week, but he wanted you to have it.
So that's next Tuesday, they'll be here to answer questions from
They'll
the
present
board.
like they did last year, Mr. Taylor, and they kind of go through it for the board. I think they took us in closed session last year, if I remember correctly, the last time.
No, it's just open.
Was it, okay, oh, it was open, I'm trying to remember, but I know they came, yes. Okay.
And so is this the same for the audit report, the CEPA?
I believe
That's
all of
still-
those are part of the audit report, yes, and he just asked me to let you all know that they would be here for all that audit information next week.
If the board has any questions for the auditors next week, write them down and we'll ask at the table. Okay, Mrs. Robinson, updates.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
I just have a few updates for you all. One is Trip Direct. Wanted to let you know that we are going online with our field trip requests. We launched that October 30th. And so that is in the process now. And then also to let you know that Dr. Muhammad will be in our district in December doing some culture and climate audits within the buildings. He is going to be there to give us some insight on our district and on our schools from that information. Professional development, we had two big pieces of professional development this past week. On October 30th, Susan Isaacs, who is a guru in PBIS, came in and did a training with our leadership teams, our building leadership teams, focused on some of the structures around PBIS and helping those leadership teams to build their skills so they can help their buildings. Also, that Tuesday, October 31st, Dr. Muhammad was in a district. He spent 2 hours in the morning working with our district leaders. And then also he came in that afternoon and did a district PD around culture and climate. We'll be back in our district in December to do one for our whole district on December 22nd, and then he'll be in our district December 8th and December 21st for audits. And then just to let you know that our window for our NWEA testing was closed on October 25th, and then next week we'll present you some data from the NWEA site. So.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Ms. Baptist, human resource update.
All right, good evening again. I have my memo there to present for you guys, starting with our current list of openings. So I'll let you look over those. Keeping in mind that the majority of these are being covered by long-term subs still at the moment. With the exception of the CTE, thank you for voting on our construction training teacher. We still have CNA and Cisco, and then most recent resignation is for the music teacher, which you'll see there in that section. All right, further down under recruitment, I don't know if you'll be able to open that. It's just a photo of our booth that we had at, yes, traveled down to University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff to recruit earlier in October. It was their fall teacher career fair, first time going as a recruiter. And I can't say enough how impressed I was by the students, from how they presented themselves to the way they were dressed. I was blown away. They were in full attire, very professional, presented themselves in a very positive way. They seemed focused on their goals. There was a lot of EE majors that surprised me. Almost everyone I spoke to was I collected resumes from 10 students, reached out to all of them, have heard back from 2 thus far. One was special ed, and she said she is seriously considering relocating to pursue her career in special education. She asked if there is a good Church of God in Christ church here, so if anyone knows, feel free to let me know. I will pass that information on. So that there are some specific names. But she was looking for a good church, so maybe that's potentially promising.
The pastors see this video, they're gonna definitely.
Okay. That's good. That's good. We can get it from all angles. So like I said, heard back from 2. I think the other one I heard back from is a lower class. There were a lot of freshmen and sophomores. And so while it's, glad you came out, but I can't do anything just yet. There was a gentleman from Detroit
who's probably set up. He graduates in December, music major, which we have a music opening, so I definitely was on him about that. He will likely be able to go right back to Detroit and get a position, but I put our opportunity out there. Overall, good trip. Sure, we'll have further discussions on what we can offer people in terms of basic relocation assistance, our salary. We all know that. So just looking for some more tools to arm myself with when I go out recruiting. That's very valuable. It was a great first trip, I thought, out of state. There are also been conversations and meetings with Western and Andrews in terms of starting to form that relationship to get student teachers, starting with observations. Some students in lower levels, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, have to complete observations of classrooms at Andrews. And so we're looking to start in that way, where they can come into our classrooms and complete those requirements, hopefully moving into the student. And then the last bullet point there just kind of shows another creative way we're trying to look at things, and that's growing from within. A lot of our long-term subs have expressed interest in career taking and pursuing education as a career choice. So we're trying to provide them with some options for alternative routes to certification. We've held some information sessions for them, teachers up tomorrow rather. And then more recently, looking to create a partnership with Davenport. They do have an alternative route program.
All right, any questions, comments, concerns for HR? Not church of God in the Christ. Misdeeds. All right, so on to Mrs. Momini, an update.
Okay, you do have several links on here. The first is the letter I received from Dr. Teasley outlining a meeting that we had. We need to make some decisions. One of the things that was in that letter was a suggestion that we look at the MASB Board of Education governance standards and decide whether we should go ahead and adopt them. It's being recommended that we do adopt them. So you have a link to a blurb about why we should, and then there's an extensive link here on adopting and utilizing them. If we decide we want to do that, we don't have to set up a meeting.
With MASD? Or?
No, well, I think we can probably work through it ourselves with what they have given us, but we're gonna have time to go through it and make sure we all agree with this, and do we want to go forward, and do we want to adopt it? One of the things, maybe further? No. One of the big ones that we need to decide on, and they'll say sooner rather than later, is that we've got to start our training and stuff that we have to prioritize. And we went through the prioritization, and it was suggested by Dr. Teasley and her boss that the first training we do would be the training to establish a master board calendar. The thought behind that is that would drive all these other things that we need to get done. And Dr. Teasley's boss has volunteered to be the person who would facilitate and train with us on how to create a master calendar. This is something that MASB suggested to us, I think almost 3 years ago, when Karen was here and another gal. And master calendar would organize and would help us do part of our due diligence to make sure we're not bringing things to the board at the last minute, that we have a logical sequence of topics that we're going to cover every month and dates set up. So I assume to make it legal, we probably should take a vote on that next week. Is do we want to make that our first training to do the master calendar? We vote yes on that, and then we need to come up with a date that we can connect with Dr. Teasley's boss. And then we also need to decide, do we want to look further into the adopting the governance? And then I submitted analysis that I received on district protocols. I gotta go in, I need to forward 3 emails to you so that we can see what our next steps are. Several of them, there was no conflict. But Mr. Taylor, Ms. Gully, and Ms. Gask in theirs have different spots where there is conflict between the policy and the protocol. And we're gonna have to sit down as a board and go through those. And the decision we're gonna need to make is, are we going to change the protocol to meet the policy, or are we changing the policy to meet the protocol? You know, because we may have in our protocol, that may be something we really want in the policy. Or maybe we've got to be careful about not letting protocols run the policy. So we've got these decisions we're gonna have to make, and unfortunately, we're gonna have some more meetings.
Can we do that at the retreat that's coming up? Can we spend just a little time to get that? Yes.
Especially on those protocols, but I think we could probably spend some time. And I will email the materials that I got from each of those board members so that you can take a look at where the conflict was. I'll tell you, Mrs. Gass put us all to shame. She set the standard. I mean, and Lisa brought us some good points, and you had some that I hadn't noticed, but Ms. Gass has set the standard to live up to now.
The protocol side of this, when you look at our protocols, policy, of course, there are no names mentioned, but in our protocols, especially known as GAA, names have been identified for different responsibilities, where I think it just should be titled rather than.
Well, Ms. Gully found names in the policies, and we may need to do titles, which is in that meeting that we had recently on the updates, we went with titles and appropriate titles. And that may need the changes that we want to make, and that's something that we can cover in our next retreat to just so we match.
Titles will the name of the.
Yeah, then they can go on in infinity or whatever until we're all gone. And but we do need to make sure, because if our protocol doesn't match our policy, then if we follow the protocol, we're violating policy. So we've got some work to do.
So, Martha, a question. So is the presentation for the district, for the board calendar, is that free?
Yes. Yeah, that's the magic word, free.
And question for me, what's the timeline? So is there a timeline to get the calendar done if we want to do that first?
I don't know what Dr. Teasley has in mind, but my estimation is the sooner the better, because that's going to guide the rest of the year.
Since we have Dr. Teasley here, please feel free to ask certain questions.
Yeah, we get right to the horse's mouth tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Is this on? Just hit it. Oh, now, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. So yes, Dr. Paula Daniels is my supervisor. She has served as a superintendent here in the state and is the interim director and manager of the Office of Partnership Districts, and she has agreed to help facilitate your discussion regarding your master calendar. The timeline is really up to you as to how important this is for you to complete. The state superintendent nor our office has put a deadline on that. Also, we realize and recognize the amount of training that you all have had as a school board regarding your responsibilities and roles. So what we are trying to facilitate, through our office is to help you to apply what you've learned, to figure out what it is that you want to do here for students. So although it's considered training, it's really you having conversations about what it is that you want to do here in the district as it relates to what topics you like to speak about, if you'd like to have community forums, things like that, and we'd like to help you sort through that and really apply and really go deep with the kinds of things that you've learned through the organizations where you've done a majority of your training, MASB, et cetera.
Any other questions for Dr. Teasley while we have her here? Any partnership questions? Nobody?
Just a quick question, Dr. Teasley. How are we looking as far as a board and fulfilling our partnership role? Have you any idea at this point?
Well, absolutely, and I'm sure the Mrs. Momley has forwarded the memos and emails. We are very pleased as an office with the effort that you put into it to comply with what you've agreed to do, and has been a model, I would say, for others. Now, I will say that your board probably had the most roles and responsibilities of any other agreement that we have signed, but to your credit, you have really committed to the partnership agreement, and we see that based upon the kinds of documentation that Mrs. Momini has forwarded, and that you took the effort to nominate her as your partnership agreement liaison. So she's my liaison counterpart, because that's my title as well from NDE. So definitely keep up the good work, and I'm here to support you as well as the superintendent and her staff, because we're really committed from the Department of Education to ensure that this partnership agreement is fulfilled and that we reach all the goals that we've set forth with it.
Okay, so that leads me into a question. Is at any point in partnership agreement, I do realize that it said after 18 months concerning the subcommittees, is there any way that 18 months can be, can be changed so that we can go back into some subcommittees, be able to work with the district?
So there's a provision in the partnership agreement, and I can't remember the section number, where you can make an adjustment or request an adjustment or modification to the partnership agreement, and it has to be agreed upon by the state superintendent. So you can always make a formal request to the state superintendent regarding that for his consideration.
Okay, thank you.
So, Secretary Seats, how's the board doing? How's the district doing?
So the district as well has made a commitment, as you have, to reaching the goals. There has been staff assigned specifically to oversee the implementation of the partnership agreement. The partners, we've been meeting for the first few months monthly to talk about progress. Everyone seems really invested and interested in the work, and Superintendent Wisdom will be coming to the December 18th meeting to have a conversation about progress, because we're about 9 months into this from when you first got the letter, March 1st. So December will be about 9 months. This is, if you start from when you signed it, would be May, so that we have different dates that we can work from. So you're still in the infancy of it. And so we're definitely interested in making sure that we're being very focused in the classrooms, which is the commitment that the superintendent and assistant superintendent has made to be in schools to drive that work and to have discussions with principals, about what it is that we want to do for students, because we've got to make movement on student data.
So the thing with Arts and Communication Academy, how does that work? With the communication saying that they were not included, because I see it says partnership, they're optional, like they're not really a part of the partnership agreement.
Okay, so you want to answer do your second question, or you want me to go ahead and answer that one?
You can answer that one.
Okay, so the state superintendent gave several districts the option to include certain schools or not. And so when Superintendent Wisdom made the phone call to Dr. Walker, Benton Harbor High School has to be included in the partnership agreement, but the option was given whether or not to put HCA in there. And it was based upon the optional schools were made optional because there was some growth in one of the two key subject areas. And so given that small bump, it was given an option to do that or not. And so what the state superintendent is yielding to is to whatever your processes are in your district to make a determination whether to include a school or not.
So you think that will be our benefit because they're showing growth?
I always say, look at the data, just as remember we had that really deep data dive in our first partnership agreement meeting. I would say let the data tell you whether to do that or not. And really take a look at what's going on in the school, talk to parents, get as much data as you can about the school, look at the school improvement plan, and really consider if that's something that you should do. Always let the data suggest for you, and it's really, it's an option for you, but always let the data determine that.
My next question was, do you follow like the curriculum director and instructional coaches, ensure that they are doing what needs to be done, like making sure that what needs to be implemented in partnership with their areas of focus, and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing to make sure that it's in the classrooms, or do you just get the information from the administration?
So my role isn't really to monitor their work, but I do support them. So one of the main ways in which I support them is I facilitate a data conversation quarterly here in the district. And a lot of the work that the curriculum director is now doing and the instructional coaches was birthed out of the conversations that we had in those quarterly meetings. So I remember one discussion in particular, I'm not sure, what month it was, but we had a conversation about teachers not really implementing the curriculum. So I asked the question, well, where are our coaches? Because our coaches are front line to helping our teachers stay on point with the pacing guide and et cetera. So after further discussion, it was discovered that there were varying degrees in which coaches were involved in helping teachers with that effort. So based upon our collective conversation, we decided that we needed to rethink their work. So I really come as a thought partner to really help the superintendent and her leadership team to really determine what would be best. If my help is requested in that vein, I absolutely can do that work because I do have experience as a coach, assistant superintendent, et cetera.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. And by the way, I was asked a while ago to participate at the MASB conference with Dr. Teasley. And so we'll talk about partnership agreements between Ben Harbor Area School and the MDE Saturday. So hopefully Ms. Gass can stick her head in the door and see how we get.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I do have one other question.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
sure.
And so it's a two-pronged question. I remember we having conversations that we are short on coaching instructors, which seems to me to be absolutely key. So I would ask if you could help us do some brainstorming about other ways we might be recruiting, any rules we could be looking at that might be put aside to perhaps be able to use other educators, retired educators, whatever, to do something to ameliorate the fact that we do not have enough of these folks who are going to be key, it would seem to me, to making sure that our teachers get the help they need.
You said you had the second part?
The second part was that. The second part was, the first part was verifying, yes, indeed, we.
Okay.
And the second part was whether or not you could help us figure
So
out where to go and how to do this.
absolutely. For instance, when I was I'm trying to remember my title at the time. I think I was the Deputy Chief of Instructional Leadership Support. And so in that office, I was responsible for oversight of professional development for all employees, maybe 23,000 teachers in Philadelphia at the time, and including central office staff, and of course the support of principals. In my office, we actually hired retired teachers to serve as our new teacher mentors. So there are definitely creative ways where you can use retired teachers where you don't jeopardize their pension. You know, each state is different. So there are definitely ways where we can think about that and really call the expertise of people who have served previously, and to also bridge the gap that we may have in our district when it comes to personnel. So I'm definitely open to having that conversation.
Thank you.
I got one more then, so we were gonna let you go, but she brought it home. So what about, Ms. Gass has an affinity for wanting to help, right? So we're looking at how would we, say by January, get in volunteers to assess the data, right? So say if we know that third graders are doing poorly in whatever subjects, because we need a bigger uptick, right? The small upticks are great, but we need to go. So how can we do that? And at the conference yesterday, they talked about 31A money being utilized for volunteers. So how can we bring in some retired teachers, volunteers to assist us to getting our data up so we can get out of this 36 months unscathed?
So the goals in your partnership agreement let you know exactly what help you need. And so I will let those guide and to take a look based upon the status of the implementation plan that the district has been using to track the progress, to see maybe where we're maybe in the yellow zone, maybe in the danger zone, maybe not quite on point, and maybe use that as a point of leverage to perhaps get some more support from the community.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Teasley, is there a training for what you call coaches? Is there a certification necessary for these coaching people?
So the state used to offer a coaching one-on-one. I don't know that we are still offering that. That preceded my time here. I'm just 2 years in, so I'm still learning a lot of stuff myself in the state. So there was a coaching one-on-one program. I don't know of anything else that the state actually underwrites for coaches. So really it is the responsibility and the goal of the district to really outline, to be very clear in the job description, what it is that that person should do, what the credentials are for the person, and to actually have professional development for coaches, which is what I did when I was in the deputy chief role that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, is to actually have training set up for them. So there are lots of things available, lots of programs or curricula, if you will, where you can do cognitive coaching, you can do videos, you can make a hybrid of your own, you can actually have coaches cross-training, because teachers have a lot. I've done thinking maps, I've done the gamut, so I can pretty much, if I taught coaches what I knew, we would do pretty well, I think. So based upon, the depth of knowledge and the decades of experience that I have. So, it really depends, and you have to assess your coaches and the people in those roles to really see what it is. I prefer a more personalized approach to professional learning, where we make an assessment of what it is that the role requires is as relates to that role, and then giving them the learning that they need to reach that point.
So Dr. Chaisley, when you talk about you can assist us with help getting coaches, can you speak to your experiences in Benton Harbor and what might be some barriers to, even though you have that expertise, why it might not come to fruition?
So there are a number of variables. One could be the perception that they have of the area, which could be varying degrees. You also have, generally, if you have a general teacher crisis, you're not a coach crisis. Coaches are teachers. So that's what, there's not anything different. Also, you have a lot of barriers to people actually wanting to leave the classroom and take that leadership role, because that's a very big leap. To, have 25 students that you're responsible for if you're elementary, or maybe hundreds of students when you're in the middle high school, to go to a role where you're not in front of students and where you're in front of adults. and very much responsible and accountable for their success. So it's a huge leap. And then again, there's a dearth, I think statewide, I'm not sure of the abundance of programs to really train people for this role. So, I mean, it's a leap of faith, and people really have to tread their own path to be successful in it. So those are some of the ones I could think of as it relates to that, and just in general, just having a hard time finding teachers, period.
And so to follow up again, because you work so closely with this leadership team and some of the variables that you identify, would you say that these are real barriers for the department?
Absolutely, and I think that's why in our discussions, our daily discussions, we really talked about how can we maximize the expertise of the people that we have and really help us move forward as a team. Because what you have to understand is people are your best investment. So as you invest into your own people, you invest in your own community, and it gives them a reason to stay and to stay committed to your community. So it's really in our best interest to really come up with systems where people know we are committed to their success no matter what role they take, so they're willing to take on those leadership opportunities.
Thank you.
Secretary Seaton and Mrs. Molly. What did you have to hand on? Okay, Mrs. Molly.
I love all these questions. I love it.
Well, yeah, and I'm suggesting, because we have had a lot of teachers retire over the past how many years, and some of them are excellent teachers who could coach. We have to limit the number of hours that they work. But rather than having a full-time person that has a whole list of teachers that they're working with, we have more coaches, but they can be part-time and work with fewer people.
And that's exactly how I did it when I think I had 30 retired teachers who served as part-time coaches for my new teachers. We had a lot of new teachers. And so they had a fairly decent, caseload where we could even maybe put one coach in a school and they just did the, 4 or 5 new teachers there, and we watched it. And then I had my executive directors oversaw the programs. I had new teacher coaches. I had new teacher, I forget their roles, but I had program directors. Then I had executive director that oversaw that to be sure that they were trained, they knew the protocol to use, they knew what documentation that we needed. And it really worked well because, as much support as you can give teachers as soon as they're onboarded, if they're, 12 years as a teacher or their first year, as I said, if your people are your best investment. So as you invest in them, that's a way for them to know that, you care. Because I know one of the barriers here is that the teachers took a salary, we want to say, decrease, or, the salaries, they weren't able to take had to freeze their salaries, if you will, when we went into the consent agreement. So you have to really be creative in the ways in which you invest into your staff so that they can stay committed while you're trying to address some of the other financial and other resources that you want to get for them in service of children.
Dr. Teasley, I don't think there's going to be a concern of volunteers. Myself and Ms. Gass, we have had a conversation. They had a host program, and there were over 600 people on that list. That list is still retained. If they're still living, they may still be willing to, because some of the people that have graduated from Benton Harbor schools are our judges. At least 70% of our judges have graduated from Benton Harbor. Most of our attorneys have graduated from Benton Harbor. Our accountants, we have people who may not live in this city, in the city limits, but most of the people at one time or another graduated from Benton Harbor area school, and that list is still retained, and the lady who has retained it is going to share that list with Trustee Gass, and will guarantee that, like I said, if they're living, They still are interested in the success of Benton Harbor area schools.
Well, and my role as the liaison for your district is to really help you think out of the box and really create ways to really help you reach those goals. So I think I'm gonna be here like in 2 more weeks or something, where we're gonna have our first quarter data discussion about how the children are achieving, how well, things are going, how well are we hitting our, district goals, which are of course aligned with the partnership agreement. And so we can definitely, have further conversation, about ideas about, doing that realistically to do the work because, you're really in a great place to innovate and to do some really positive things for children. So definitely let me know how I can support you in that.
I just wanted to add, if you want retired teachers, you need to grab them as soon as they retire. Because like my group, when most of us left, no, we don't want to come back anymore. So, if you're looking, you need to get them as soon as they retire and they have to realize there is life.
All right, any other questions for Dr. Casey?
This is my second exit. Go ahead.
Just speaking of retired teachers, so we did get one that just retired, Denise Rapp, and that she is helping. And then also, I know, just my feat in trying to get retired teachers, I reached out, I think it was last fall, to a bunch of them, reading teachers and everything. I think it was 10 of them that I reached out to for personal phone calls, people I knew. I received 2. So Michelle Crowder and Patricia White. So those 2. And there was some other ones that I reached out to.
But are they acting as coaches?
They're not acting.
They're not acting as
And there are
coaches.
some who are saying they wasn't.
That's real. That's real.
So it's a
It's an adjustment to go. So if you're used to being a classroom teacher to be a coach, it is a huge adjustment.
I'll have to add drugs to their face.
You don't want to go on record saying that, Mrs. Maloney.
And then the ones that I, that are working part-time. I'm speaking 20 hours that they can get. So,
Well, and let me just add too, I think you're in a really powerful position to really rebrand and really make it attractive for people to come here and to be a part of what it is you're trying to do for students. So one district that I worked with, I said, you have a large, English language learner population. How many districts can offer that as an opportunity to work with a diverse student population? So you have to, although you might have some things that may be challenging, you have a lot of celebrations and things to look forward to, and that will really be an opportunity for someone who's trying to launch their career, have their career here or wherever they are in their journey. So always remember that and always think about that in our delivery and in the ways we talk about the district.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Dr. Walker, final comments?
Yes, I have several things. First, Sue's going to hand you, we did receive the GMB books, the like 5-year-old, and they're not sure. So I've asked her to provide those to you before you leave, so we're going to hand those out, so that you have time to review, speak there before November 18th meeting. Ms. Robinson is going to share, we got some really good news today about a grant.
we did apply for, and this is something that Mr. Taylor brought to me when I first got into central office, was the BHAS grant. So we received notice that we did receive one of the BHAS grants for $7,500 for our robotics team at the high school to purchase materials and things like that. And so $7,500 from the BHAS company is going to our robotics team. So we are excited about that.
I also had a Sue put on the table for you. There was a very quick discussion around students' access to the global language school and to the Dream Academy. So you should have a document in front of you that has the more acronym in it. I just wanted to share with you the process that is in place for students want to access that program. I had a chance to talk to just one program, and I thought it would be helpful for the entire board to have this information. And so if you scroll through, when a parent is identified as a potential candidate, whether by choice or if we recommend it, then that parent would have a meeting with the language team and or HRE, and they do fill out some additional paperwork where they have an opportunity to understand what the program entails, so they really can make that informed decision if they don't participate. So I just wanted the board to know there is a process that goes with that. So as the board does this work, if you find that one of these programs, training or the language is a match, that you also make sure that they can understand that they still do need to, get that. But that, training, it's not training that, oh my gosh, exposure to the program, there's a word, I can't think of it, but exposure to the program. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then I'm really excited how last night, after I came back from the conference, we stayed for a few skills, but I did have another meeting set up. I put in a weekly memo that a gentleman by the name of Mike Burkle had expressed interest in volunteering for the district. He had recently returned to Benton Harbor and is a 1969 Benton Harbor graduate, and he was willing to assume the task of helping to build the Benton Harbor Foundation, something that really has been on the radar for a while, which is no opportunity. So he has been working that and has reached out to a lot of people. The seats have given me a list of several people that she knew about that might be interested. I connected him with some people that I knew. He connected with people he knew, and has just done a lot of networking to try to find those people that might be willing to serve on the foundation. And so I think it was yesterday, might have been Saturday. It is Tuesday, I'm sorry, Sunday. Or yesterday, he did confirm with me that meeting on November 20th to kind of explain to those people who said they're interested. I could talk with them about the district, and then he's going to talk to them about the foundation. He's gotten some retired person to do the bylaws. He's gotten some retired lawyer to submit the paperwork and pay the fees. So we're really going. It's very, very exciting. And so this next phase is really where things will start to come together with those persons who have been reached out to, will have an opportunity to determine if they want to commit or not based on the information that we provided. So again, I'll keep you up to date as things start to shape. But I'm really excited about the opportunity to finally actually have a Benton Harbor Foundation. So it's good news. And then I did get a response back from Mr. Crucial that the board would like to hear what he was saying. You all were asking some questions about the whole arrangement with Ocean Chandler. One of the questions was there additional information? Everything that I linked for you in the memo was all he received. In his response, he said there were emails that went back and forth between him and other people, but that was all they gave. So labor is in the memo was all that I have. He did also confirm, because he had not spoken to me about the time frame, nor did I ask. I mean, he presented to me as an option. He presented the speed disorder, so that's why I asked him, what is this something you would want to do? And he did go on to say that, that Mr. Chandler's staff did, as Mr. Mitchell was pointing out, leave that door open to be something done in the summer. He just thought we might want to expedite it because of this December tournament or something that they know about. So that's again just to give the board context around his information and what you received. So it's certainly, as I stated earlier, not an issue for us to absolutely wait. Thank you.
Ms. Gass has a question, Dr. Walker?
Just going back to the foundation, and you're talking about members of the board, is there an application process, guidelines, have those been developed? They've been disseminated, and how are we going to recruit?
So Mr. Burkholm has, like I I said, had a lawyer, he met with 2 other foundations and found out how does a district start a foundation. So it's sort of the St. Joe Foundation people, he met with them. And that's who I was introduced to when I first came through. Lisa Cruz Downey, who was on the Very Good Foundation. She put me and Scott Johnson in a meeting with some people to kind of learn how this works. And so from what I remember when she first introduced us, she basically, like I said, like he did, you request whatever charter, I don't know, like where it lived on. So we fill out some paperwork for that, we have to have bylaws and things like that. So he's done all of that legwork. I believe this meeting that comes forward, I have not seen anything where people actually apply. I'm not gonna say it does not exist because I really have not been at all involved in the organization of it. It really is a foundation that creates the community, that where people will have an opportunity to donate to the district, and the money coming in and the money coming out, all of that is handled through the foundation, through that committee. I don't know that anyone would necessarily not be allowed to attend, so I would say if you have people that you think would be interested, let me know, and I'll certainly pass their names to them as I did with the ones with seats at given to.
I don't know that we have any influence over how this happens, but I certainly think that there needs to be an application process. And I don't know anything about the foundation itself, being a new board member. So I would like to get that information in terms of how it's been organized, what the association is with the actual school district, and how the guidelines are going to be developed in terms of dispersing the funds, as well as selecting people to be actual members of the board.
So I have permission to give him your number? Because I mean, the only thing I can reference you back to is the board policy that speaks about when a foundation is started. In my experience was when the football team did a foundation, and ultimately, they came and presented to the board once they got everything started. Mr. Mitchell might give us some guidance and insight because he's been through that. But that's the only thing I can speak to, and I would be happy to give him your number, if you're okay with that. I'll give you this.
I think it was anything like the athletic foundation that we have. This is a group or an entity outside of the school district that has its own board of directors, and it has its own 405 or what we call that. And it's a lengthy process. But after that, it was branded and so forth. There should be a partnership between the foundation and our various schools. And in their bylaws, all of the information will be there for how funds are disseminated, how many blind who can draw from the board of directors and foundation, how they do the criteria. But the school board, the school district will have to be, totally in agreement on how it's set up and how it's going to flow back to the school. But it is separate from the school district accounts and who can draw from the dollars.
Thank you.
I think one good thing would be to have him come in and explain the process. And then we all know about it, right?
Sure.
I recall back when we had our other superintendent, he did bring to us, I don't know if you remember, an application that was from the state to start a foundation. It was from Lansing, but we never did it because we had gotten taken over by the state. So there was like an application to start something to actually like link it to our website to say donate to the district. So I don't know if that's the same thing, but just from the other processes, I'm just real skeptical about like the other information. When we went through the whole investigation process, we couldn't even get the books or the data on who was raising money, but they was advertising our kids and they was fundraising. And we never got that tax documentation as to how much they raised, how they was reporting their taxes. It's just still out there. They just shut the whole thing down once we started investigating. So I'm real skeptical about just any random person saying they have been Harvard Foundation and then using our kids to advertise. I mean, they had football, our kids from football games, they was doing radio stuff. We had no information on what was being raised and where the money was allocated or anything. So if this is gonna be like that, I wouldn't support it. Unless it was directly linked to us to actually help our schools and we can actually see where the money is going and how much is being raised.
You know, I think this is a totally different concept, what was here before this. And I understand what you're saying. So I remember when that group just disappeared from the face of the earth. There was no accountability on the funding. And I think this is a whole different animal.
We have
Right, so we need them,
to see them, because I don't know who this person is.
so we need them to come to the board, present to the board, foundation, how they're gonna start it, the processes of whether they're take application, what are the guidelines of the foundation, et cetera, in ways we can understand it.
I will connect them with Ms. Gals.
Well, we need to see if we can bring them to the board.
Oh, you don't want to talk to them?
Well, I think the whole board needs to understand the process. Because if not, this guy, I don't even know who he is. You know, he graduated, but we don't know who he is, so maybe he can explain it to us, like who has a, because the St. Joe Foundation, I know this person's over the St. Joe Foundation, and he can explain how they started it, what they had to do, whether it was a state application filled out, whatever it is, that way we can all understand.
Okay, so I hear somebody speak to him about coming forward.
Okay, so trustee Bill, comments, concerns? Okay, trustee Guest? Mrs. Momley?
Okay, I'll take their time. First, I have to give a shout out. I know there's not many people here, but at the MLK Library, there are days that there are a lot of things going on in there. The other day, there was Barry Risa special ed, who was having meetings with kids and parents and everything, and all the officers walked away. Our curriculum director, Brian Scoggins, was having a PLC meeting and working with the teachers, and the kids were supposed to come in for library. And God bless Miss Lockett's group, because they chose to come in just 3 at a time, which some of the others did too. But this group was fantastic. They were well behaved. Something I love is they were looking for specific authors, and they made me work for my money I don't get. But I love it because they really wanted books, and they knew what they wanted, and they were well behaved, and they didn't disrupt any of the meetings that were going on in there. So I appreciate Miss Lockett's group greatly. I know you guys have been talking about volunteers. The academic interventionist at MLK has tried to steal one of my volunteers, but she and a friend of her have agreed to come in some extra days, and they're going to try to work with the academic interventionist there, and they've gone through background and everything, and they're going to see if they can help her, because she's got 10 kids at a time that she's working with, and they're going to do a little experiment with trying to help her with those students in an intervention so that we can improve the academic growth that she's making with them. If it works well, then maybe that's something that other people can use too. I have kind of to support some of the questions you've had, Lisa. The PLC meetings that they've been having at MLK, sometimes because they're in the library, I'll hear what's going on. And from what I'm observing, Mr. Scoggins is enriching the people who are teacher coaches and expanding their job and giving them suggestions on how they can help teachers and being pretty specific about it. And the teachers, he has given them down and dirty suggestions on how to help students. Not you have to stand on one hand and twirl your foot in the air at the same time you're doing the strategy. He has really given some really good, solid suggestions to teachers, and they seem to be encouraged with the fact that they're getting some good, solid, not pie in the sky suggestions. So hopefully this will continue on. I've been impressed with what's been going on, and believe me, I'm one quick to say, what? You're crazy, but it's been pretty good. I am curious, with the state, and there was change in student funding, how much exactly are we getting in foundation money for each student this year? And then what is the down and dirty number of who do we have enrolled in Benton Harbor area schools, the number of FTEs that Student Funding Foundation, how many times are we collecting that for how many students?
So let me make sure I understand your last question. Say that one more time, please.
Well, and I don't want, what I want is an accurate count. So if you say we've got 2,136, that means that's 2,136 that we're receiving funding for, that we absolutely know we're receiving funding for, and not, well, they may be here or they may not be here.
So what you're speaking to is a piece of data that the Bureau will validate. And when they validate our actual attendance, that's what we're funded by. So I have to wait until we get that official information. I think they do it sometime mid-November. So once we have that, we'll share in the weekly memo. On the question that was asked, you do have 3 different dates in the month of September, October, where we've given you what the system is saying we have flexibility. So, but again, that's the unofficial.
Yeah, but you're also telling me that system and data is not working.
That's not the system that
okay.
provided that data, is what I'm told.
My bottom line is, I want us to know what we got coming in, because we know we have to make changes to the budget, and we cannot wait. We've got to do it as of last week or the week before.
We can't do anything until that official,
but
and that's mid-November.
In the meantime, we may be spending money we don't have.
Well, I think when you get the audit, you're going to find some, if you have had an opportunity to really go through it, you're going to see some really amazing things with the conservation of funds, the ending fund balance that the district has, amazing. So I think you'll feel a lot better as you.
I hope so, because I should have want you worse.
I guarantee you.
Okay. That's it for me. I think I took all 3 arguments.
Okay.
4.
Andrew?
Oh.
Ms. Deeds?
I'll say my comment to, do you want me to?
No, go on, Ms. Mitchell?
Nothing, sir.
My comments are there's a Lego League started. We have a competition November 8th for the students. We were hoping it would have been a lot later, so we're like behind the 8 ball, but we do have the 2 boards built, robots programmed, and then students are learning to operate those programs. So we'll do the best we can. So the students are really loving this. ABC 57 came there today, interviewed some of the kids. So it's a good day for the district. All right, any other business? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I would like to know what the update on the high school heating is.
I'm sorry,
And
The heating.
And I know that there is a second floor, and there's heating on that second floor. And is that part of the contingency plan in case of an event that occurred as far as lack of heating for the students in this last week or so? Because I know there is heat on the second
Third floor.
Third floor, I'm sorry.
I'm sure it's heat on the second.
Also, I would like the board to also consider, it's not in the form of a proposal, but something for the board to think about. And that is we are working to get the media, radio, and TV back up. And we do know, like, ABC happens to be in Benton Harbor quite a bit of the time, and they are willing to consider partnering with the students or the school district to do some training for students. And also, if that would include possibly, I know in St. Joseph, the city of St. Joseph, there is a TV station that has a substation. And if we can get them to partner with our kids and do some live broadcasting and things, I think that would be tremendous. And we would have to submit something. And Dr. Teasley, I think that's one of the reasons that I asked, if you would ask the state superintendent if we could come back with an amendment to our partnership agreement, because a lot of times we have suggestions And a lot of times we have ideals, and we as a board would like to see that those things are followed through, and to make sure and ensure not against administration because they're so busy, that if we bring something to the board, that we can participate in a way that it ensures that the intent is met. Because again, with them, as the administration busy bringing the population up and the scores and all of that up, we do have subcommittees that could assist in making sure that some of these suggestions, like Ms. Gas had with the volunteers, and what we talked about with the basketball and different things, like Mr. Taylor's involved in robotics, that we're allowed to not dictate but participate, so that because some of us do have some ideas that could work and benefit the district, and we would like to ensure that that does happen and it follows through. So if you would, I appreciate that, and we can get something together, Mr. Taylor, and submit to the state superintendent that will allow us, because we have some other ideas that will benefit the district. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, just
Yes, ma'am.
piggyback a little bit on her talking about the heat. I just realized in the last 2 days that we've run into just a little bit of a lack of information about our heating systems because we have different people. We had no heat in MLK Library for a week because no one was aware. You had to go online and click on the icon that said, turn on the heat. And they were not aware that the library was a separate room that was on a different system. And the same thing happened over to McCord. There was one section that wouldn't heat, and it's because they had to go on the computer, click, turn on the heat. And I don't know how we overcome that, but because we got new people in here under the CSM and new people working on our systems, they're not aware. And maybe we need to pass, on there, Mr. Leonard, maybe there's a way so that those people will be more aware.
That's a discussion for another day, because I don't agree. We have a person in that role that's just fulfilling the role that is not being done. So there's no reason for peers to be told.
And I would say as well that when we look at board policy, all principals in their buildings are responsible for the maintenance and things like that. So when that heat was off, the principal should have said to Mr. Leonard, hey, I got a heating issue. When we had the heat off at the high school, the board didn't know about it until Trustee Gully told us. And then I reached out to Dr. Walker. But that should have been told by the principal, right, to Dr. Walker, because once he came in the building, he realized it's kind of cold in here, right? So I think that administration's got to make sure they're doing their due diligence, because it's their job and it's part of the policy that they need to follow. And our heating, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, I'm gonna use you. Mr. Mitchell, yes. Well, he suggested, because of his 30+ years in the district, in the summer, he told Mr. Leonard, he says, hey, look here, we need to make sure those pipes are fixed. We need to make sure we turn on the heat before it gets cold, right? Then we could fix this. So then students would have been without heat for several days. So we got to do something about this. Dr. Walker, please reach out to Baron Risa, just say, hey, what can we do to make sure that the person in charge of facilities and operations does the job? Right. I'm sorry. But I had to chime in. And one more thing, I'm sorry, because went up to the third floor. I got a question. The board paid, how much money did we pay to redo the third floor years ago? Was it $1.something million? But we're not using the third floor. We have new facilities with boxes in the corners of the rooms. And we know we have a good heating and air conditioning system on the third floor because it's brand new. So I don't know what's going on and why our students are cold, right? Because we got a brand new hallway. And so I don't know if you have a question as to why the principal, we're not utilizing the money that the taxpayers gave. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. So when you look at the discipline data, and you look at the staff that are monitoring it for, there was a conversation had with administration through our weekly meetings to determine if it was feasible to not have students on that floor to better ensure safety and security order as we had, because he had the ninth graders on that floor. And because of the substitutes, we have a large number of substitutes this year that we have not had in the past at the high school. So providing them the proper support, providing support to the students, removing mindful Title IX issues, to decrease the amount of space that we're trying to learn to supervise the kids in. They might be able to not use the third floor at this time. So that is actually coming out to you in the memo to explain. I'll just give you an update to that. The third floor right now, we've kind of put on hold so that we can provide the proper supports to the students and ensure that we are providing the proper supports to our substitute teachers. Because at ninth grade, we don't have substitute teachers.
Trustee Kelly.
So is it no access to third floor?
It
Are the
is
doors locked?
access to, no ma'am.
So
It is
how
access.
is that safe?
There will be, so what's happening, and again, this goes back to this whole process of how the CSM staff has managed to work this program called School Dude. That all information goes through, it's a direct request to the school. So, it is my understanding there are some, I'm gonna call them gadgets, because I don't know that are coming in that will allow us to properly secure that floor, but not violate certain fire code violations, so that piece is coming. That's why the final class, I believe, moved off the third floor this past weekend. So
So it looks like we need to use that safe prevention game grant to hire more security so that our kids can be in a safe, warm, and orderly environment instead of utilizing it for things that's not going to benefit our curriculum, the programs. So if they can hire more security in our buildings to assure that we can have security on the third floor and our kids won't have pneumonia or our staff, then we should hire more security.
So there is a cap on how much of our money we can use for security, and we're at that cap. So unless we took it out of general fund and we're gonna have it, we are maxed on our security. So again, all those variables are taken into account in the decisions.
I need that in writing.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I need that in writing.
What I just said?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And the, information of the cap from the grant and what it is and actually how much we spent and what we were allowed to spend and how, the security being utilized. So I need all that information in writing supported by the state documentation saying that we can only have this many people in security at the high school and this grant can only be used for that. So you gotta use it for other things. I need all that in writing.
So what it'll tell you is how
No,
much of the
just put it in writing
district,
for me.
what it'll
I
tell
need
you
you to tell
is
me.
how much the
That's it?
district
That's
can
not-
spend
that's
on
not-
salaries.
Just put it in writing. No. Put it, everything I just asked, I want that in writing.
If you could give us a chance to make sure we got all that. I don't think so. So.
Dr. T.
So, submit the question to the president.
Do you understand the
No, I'm telling you
safe,
now.
safe and supportive grant? Could you talk to us about that, like what's allowed as far as the, the piece of security versus program money?
So I don't have that documentation with me, but it is available. And I'm sure Dr. Walker can freely share a copy of the application, the award letter of the grant that will specify the, what the budgeted amounts which were approved and for what purposes they were to be used. So, and if Dr. Walker, you don't have that, I definitely have a copy of that as well. I don't have that on me, so I can't speak to what's in it. I have no idea right now. But that is available.
That's okay, we're on the cap is on the 31 it's used to pay for safety security. The gag and safety plan, the way it was split up and allocated and submitted to the state, included like one person to do security. So we could propose to reallocate that, but then we're going to lose the other variables because it's just as other money is on spend. So the counselors are a big portion of that money that we now have currently in our schools. And what we're doing, excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me, what we're doing with the entrances, that work that's coming. So if you go back, I'll be happy to give you another copy of the grant to Susan's point and how the money was divided up. You'll see You have categories that the state has already approved, and we have filled and paying for the positions out of that grant that we're providing for security, and then the 31A grant that allows us to address safety issues. We have maxed the amount of money that we can spend for security with everybody we could afford. So I'll be happy to provide the correct documentation. I think it would help if we can get the question right so we don't miss.
Right. So to trustee Mills' point, if we can get that in writing, plus the documentation of the grant entry, right, which gives all those guidelines, that'll be good. And I'm sorry, I'm remiss, I missed Ms. Gass, I know she had a hand up a while ago.
Just, now I want to go to your point about 31A. As long as you're doing it, would you divide it out, specify how much we're spending in each one of the categories, because the 31A is what I have my eye on for use perhaps with third grade at-risk students. So there, this is a bigger issue. And the only other comment I made is I don't know how the school is entirely set up, but Mr. Taylor and Ms. Seitz and myself went to the third floor because I had never seen it when we came home from the conference. So it might be, maybe it's just an impractical idea, but if that is a warmer floor than another floor, I understand a limit to the security, but perhaps we need to look at those two issues together and remove them from a floor that doesn't have very good heat, even when the heat is on, given the problems with our heating system overall. Just a suggestion.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell. So, being there no other business, may I have a motion to close the meeting? So moved by Secretary Seitz, supported by Trustee Martha Momini.
Lisa Gully,
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Martha Momini.
Yes.
Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Marlene Seats, yes. Stephen Mitchell. Joseph Taylor.
Yes, this meeting is adjourned at 8:37.